Welcome everyone to 5 Minutes of British Literature. Let's talk about King Arthur and the Matter of Britain. The Matter of Britain is a long-standing term for the body of texts and folklore that make up Britain's national origin story as it took shape during the Middle Ages. A lot of medieval authors fed it material with varying degrees of historical accuracy, but perhaps the most prominent contributor was Geoffrey of Monmouth, author of the History of the Kings of Britain, written during the 1130s. He drew from old texts, well-known folk tales, and his own imagination to create a compilation of stories about ancient British kings, epic battles, monsters and magic, and above all, the greatness of British origins. According to Geoffrey, Britain was founded by Aeneas's great-grandson, Brutus, who transformed the island to a civilized land populated with the descendants of the ancient Trojans. This starting point meant that the British peoples were not some backwater tribes on some island, but a nation that carried the legacies of Troy and Rome. It was a birth story to be proud of. Geoffrey also gets credit for the bulk of the King Arthur myth that we know today. In the history of the kings of Britain, Arthur and his court are the height of European royalty. Arthur himself is strong, charismatic, courageous, generous, and most important, victorious in battle. His court is wealthy, grand, and populated with heroic knights who are dedicated to their king. We see Arthur and his men battle giants and monsters and demolish their enemies on the battlefield. Arthur's war prowess is so great and his own loyalties are so strong that he can only be undone from within his own family. His nephew Mordred betrays him and takes over his kingdom while he's away at war. Arthur and his men confront Mordred in a climactic battle, and though Arthur wins back his throne and kills the traitor, the fight is costly. Tragically, Arthur himself is mortally wounded and taken to Avalon to die. Geoffrey's glamorous, hypermasculine King Arthur was a very popular figure in the 12th century. English aristocrats adopted this version as their spiritual ancestor, and storytellers and historians made King Arthur and his court central to the Matter of Britain. He represented the best of how the English wanted to see themselves. Storytellers in other countries gravitated toward the Arthur stories too, and in the 13th and 14th centuries, they added to this body of legends by further exploring the humanity of Arthur and his court. Welsh and English writers fleshed out the relationships among Arthur's knights and their feats of greatness. French writers added a lot of the romantic elements that we know today, and they increased the role of women in these stories and wrote about the romantic entanglements in Arthur's court. Over time, Arthur and his court were portrayed as less violent and more refined. By the time that Sir Gawain and the Green Knight was written in the late 14th century, Geoffrey's collection of myths had grown into a rich Arthur-verse filled with interesting characters, adventures, intrigues, and conflicts that could inspire reflection on the complexity of heroism and nobility. However, while the rest of Europe regarded him as a great literary hero, King Arthur was still very much a historical hero to the English. To them, his stories were an illustrious part of their national history. And to English royalty, Arthur was an effective propaganda tool. Kings throughout the Middle Ages took on the mantle of Arthur to increase their own legitimacy, and they used legends of Arthur's accomplishments to rally the public to their pet causes, which often involved wars to reclaim foreign land that Arthur supposedly conquered for England centuries before. Arthur's influence as a historical figure faded in the Renaissance, but his power as a literary and cultural figure persists even today to those who see his court as a symbol of heroism and honor. Thanks for watching, and be sure to watch the video on chivalry and knighthood for this week as well.